Welcome back. In the previous video, while creating the JSF project, we used certain JSF tags. We will discuss these tags in detail in this video. Let's discuss about output label. It's usually used as a label for an input field. Just as in our previous example, we had an input text field called user ID, for which we provided a label called user ID. It renders an HTML label tag. The text that you want to display on the screen is to be provided in the value attribute. Just as in HTML, inline styling is possible using the style attribute. You can also refer to a style class using the styleClass attribute. If you don't want to display a label, then you provide the rendered attribute as false. If you want it to be displayed, then you provide it as true. By default, it is true. You can also mention for which input field the label is. You have to provide the ID of the input field in this attribute. Now let's go back to our XHTML and try these attributes on output label tag. Here it is. Let's run it as it is and see how it works. Yes, this is the same one. This is the label, user ID, this is the output label, input text, right? So let's go back to XHTML again. Let's change this value. We have already used this attribute called value. So let's change that to something else. This is a label user ID. Let's build this. See how it comes out. Now you can see this. So the string that you provide in the value attribute is the one which is displayed, right? Now let's use style attribute. We have seen the value attribute. Now we will see the style attribute. Before that, we will bring back this value to user ID, right? Okay. Now we will use the style attribute and say style will display it in color blue. Can I make it blue? Yeah. Save this. Run this. It builds. Can you see this? It's in blue. So it's just like what you do in HTML. You provide inline style, it works, right? Now let's use styleClass attribute, right? Let's go back and close this. There's a program here. Yeah, here's the XHTML. I will remove this inline styling. Okay, yeah. Now, if you want to include a style class, what you have to do in NetBeans and other IDEs is to include it within resources. So you put it here, the resources. Create this folder under web pages, resources, and under resources you create one more folder called as CSS, and under CSS create a cascading style sheet. Can you see this? It's cascading style sheet. I will call it as styles. CSS. Styles. Oh, sorry, not CSS. It adds .css. So let's finish. Now under this I'll put the class that I want to have. I'll put it as mandatory field, right? And here I'll put it as all mandatory fields would be red usually. If you have seen forms, you will see that mandatory fields are red. So I put it under style sheet, styles. So you have to create resources. Under that you have CSS. Under that styles.css. You have to create the folder CSS because this is called as a library within a resource. So you can also have images. You can, if you have an image, you will put one more folder and call it as an image, right? So here we have a style, so we have called it as CSS. You can give any name that you want. Now let's go back to XHTML, right? In XHTML, I'm going to mention styleClass as mandatory field, right? But this is not enough. If you run it like this, run it, there is no change, right? So what is the problem? The problem is that you have to include the style sheet. So how do you do that? Do it H output style sheet. Name of the style sheet is styles.css, right? Where is it available? What is the library under which it is available? It is available under CSS. I'm going to put it over here. Now if we run this, it should display user ID in red because we have said it is a mandatory field and all mandatory fields would have red. So shall we try this? Run. Here it is, right? So let's try putting the same style to another label. Here it has, okay, same style class, mandatory field. I'm using the same class. So define it once and use it anywhere. So this is what it displays. So this is how the style class works. So what you need to do is to define a class under style sheets and put that style sheet under a library called CSS and put the CSS under resources, right? So let's go to the next one. Now let's use the attribute render. Let's go back. here. We will remove style class here, also here, which are both output label. So let's say render is false. Okay, let's build this and see what happens. It's gone. The field is gone. So what does that mean? Means render fonts makes the label invisible. Now let's use the for attribute. I will remove this one, it is not required. So remove this one, which was in the previous style class one. I will remove that too. Now I will say come here and put this label is for client ID, which is user ID. So I'll put this ID over here as user ID. So what I'm mentioning here is that this label is for this input text. So we are linking it through the for. The for has user ID over here, which is referring to this ID of input text. You won't be able to see anything on the screen, but then we'll just run it so that you won't see any errors. So you won't be able to see anything on the screen right now. One thing that you can always see is that as you hover over it, you will see that, can you see that it is, this text field is activated, and when you click on that, it goes over there. So for this we have not provided any ID, so it is not coming, this cursor is not coming over here, but then when you click on this, cursor goes over there. That shows that this label is for this input text field, right? We will discuss some more attributes of output label at a later point of time. At this point of time, we will go to input text. But before going to input text, we will summarize as to what are the various attributes that we discussed. We discussed about the for attribute. The for attribute is for a client whose ID is mentioned over here. In this case, it is an input field. We discussed about rendered. If we mention it as false, the label is not visible. We discussed about inline style, which is very similar to HTML style. We gave a color of blue for the label. We discussed about styleClass, how to define the class, how to define the library, and how to put it under the resources, and how to use the style sheet within the XHTML page. We discussed about value. The string that we want to display on the screen is to be provided in the value. So we will discuss about some more attributes of output label at a later point of time, but at this point of time we'll move to